What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be discussing 3 of the most bizarre alien abduction encounters in my opinion, and this is a part 1 video. So, did you guys know that up until very recently, with the release of the official disclosures of UFOs into mainstream media, despite all of the evidence and witness testimony given throughout at least decades or perhaps even centuries from extremely credible sources, UFOs were actually considered conspiracy theories. That's not what I'm here to talk to you about today, mind you, conspiracy theories I mean, but I just find that so incredibly baffling. We have people who have dedicated their very lives to keeping this huge secret while working for all different kinds of government agencies and throughout as well, all different governments in all different countries. I still don't understand why the powers that be did this, kept all of this interaction, contact, and visitation with all different races of aliens from their public. It makes me super suspicious and pretty much absolutely positive that there's so much more they're keeping from us that we may never know, at least not in my lifetime. For me, even though I talk about so many different things here on my channel, and despite all of our discussions about some pretty terrifying things, is what scares me the most, because I just can't understand why they would do this. I mean, what in the world could they be hiding? Aside from all of these expert and professional testimonies and eyewitness accounts, there's been one thing which, in my opinion, should have compelled the governments who were aware of these visitations to let their public know about what was going on. And that's all of the alien abductions that have been taking place, most likely throughout centuries and possibly since even the beginning of time. These abductions are not pleasant, and for me, this fact alone stands to reason that these governments have something huge to hide, letting its own people not only suffer and go through these things, but also, to add insult to injury, they basically call them crazy or conspiracy theorists and tell the whole world that they are liars and making these things up. How incredibly scary is that? Imagine being an abductee and hearing this. Being treated like this, it literally makes me sick. Now, I didn't want to get started on a political rant and start any kind of debate, and while you're certainly free to discuss what and how you like in the comment section, please keep in mind that those things are definitely not where I'm going with this. I want to dig deeper, as always, despite where it takes me, and I will. I want to investigate which species are now officially documented as having been here on Earth and try to find out what they want. Not only what the official reason they have allegedly come here is, but the real reason they're not only visiting Earth, but terrorizing and making victims out of us. What is it they want? I know, and you should too, if you watch my videos regularly, with absolute certainty, there is a hybrid program going on, and I've recently come to find out through my unending and constant research that as many as 10, and possibly more as I'm still searching for more answers, alien races that are participating in one kind of hybrid program or another. While it may take me a bit longer to bring you more information on that particular subject and the others I've just mentioned in this super long introduction, don't worry, I definitely will. I got your back. For now, however, I wanted to go through some abduction stories with you. I use the word stories very lightly, mind you, but honestly, it's for lack of a better word. I've poured through hundreds, possibly thousands of supposedly real abduction stories, and have found so many which I find very credible and which I believe in my heart and my sense are absolutely 100% real. Today, I have chosen to discuss some of the more bizarre cases, though. On this channel, we are fans of the mysterious, the bizarre, and even the macabre. So let me take you all on a journey through all of my research and information, and we can pick out these 3 abduction encounters and review them, see what makes them so special and so incredibly strange. If, that is, you can look past the fact that speaking of alien abductions and encounters as though they aren't the strangest thing about all of this. So many questions, and in this girl's opinion, and I'm sure hoping most if not all of you will agree with me here, not nearly enough answers. I'm trying to make some sense out of it all, I promise. You all know I love to do series because I can never quite get enough information about anyone's subjects, and I'm always compelled to just keep searching despite being brought down many rabbit holes into so many dead-end roads. Well, with all of that finally being said, here it is, my top 3 most bizarre alien abduction encounters. Also, please keep in mind, some of these are so strange I couldn't resist and yet couldn't find much information on, so I did my very best I could to get you all of the information I could possibly find, but some of these may be much shorter than the other ones. Thank you for your understanding and patience, as always. Number 1, Gustavo Gonzalez and Jose Ponce. In 1954, in Petare, Venezuela, and I could be saying that wrong, again, no offense, there were 2 men who were driving in a van to a pork wholesaler store late at night, and for whatever reason, the men were almost abducted by aliens that night, and who knows what would have happened to them had they not fought back. I haven't been able to find any more information about the aliens who allegedly went after them that night either, so who knows what they were up to. A lot of you Bigfoot fans are going to start saying that this is another reason we could all mark off as to why Bigfoot himself is an extraterrestrial, but I don't believe that at all. I believe he is an interdimensional being, but for some reason I was compelled to say this as I went through the information on this almost abduction. So anyways, it was later reported that the road suddenly became completely blocked by a glowing sphere. There was absolutely no way for the 2 men named Gustavo Gonzalez and Jose Ponce to get around the UFO, even if they had had the time to do so, which they had not. Immediately upon coming to a complete stop, and I'm sure wondering what the hell was going on, 3 short and very hairy aliens came out of the craft and started towards them. For some reason, this amazing and incredibly interesting case isn't very well documented and has kind of gotten lost to history and or lack of retelling, but here's what I know. So these 3 aliens, who I can't help but thinking as those things from Star Wars, what are they called? Wookiee, Ewok? You guys know what I'm talking about, come on. These things made some kind of abduction attempt on these 2 men. However, they got the wrong 2 men that night, and both Ponce and Gonzalez fought back with all of their might and all of their soul, with Gonzalez even pulling a pocket knife, allegedly his knife from his old days in the Boy Scouts of all things, and trying in vain to stab at least one of these things. The many stabs did not penetrate the alien's skin though, as underneath the hair it appeared they had extremely rough, or as it was later described, rhinoceros-like skin. After some punching and kicking, knocking the aliens off one another's backs, etc., just like this crazy fight scene right in the middle of the road. Just think of it like a barroom brawl, but with some super short hairy guys and 2 grown and regular sized men, one of which had a knife that wouldn't stab. Now, you may ask, due to my growing sarcasm while recounting this encounter, why I chose to put it on the list here. Well, this one is number 3, and believe it or not, I do believe this story happened. It's just also very comical when I play it out in my head, but make no mistake, I would never come out and say such a thing as an attempted alien abduction is funny. In fact, they're anything but. I know some of y'all are going to point out that they don't have the Boy Scouts in Venezuela, but I am just reporting the facts as I have read and believe them. Perhaps Gonzalez was in something similar to our Boy Scouts here in America, or perhaps, even more likely, that bit got added in by some smartass who thought this was all some kind of joke or hoax. Either way, though, he really did pull out a pocket knife. Why did the aliens retreat, though? This is the most bizarre thing about this entire encounter to me. I mean, couldn't they just put the 2 to sleep telepathically? Or however they do it? Couldn't they have put out that overwhelming sense of peace and safety most other aliens are known to be able to do very well, and also very often? I don't know, guys, and I'm still researching for what kind of alien race this could possibly have been. Many people have accused these 2 men of making the whole thing up just to get attention and possibly money, but that's what they always do, right? They always try and make the victim look crazy, because up until recently, this was all a big conspiracy theory, and that's what I was trying to say in the beginning. They have a lot of nerve, they have a lot of balls, right? I'm just not ready to discount this encounter so easily. Let me know what you all think in the comments below, as always. Number 2 is Whitley Strieber. On December 26, 1985, Whitley Strieber was just having some rest and relaxation time to himself in a cabin in the woods when he was allegedly abducted by aliens. Strieber was an accomplished and well-known writer and novelist, and many of his writings were actually adapted into movies. I mean, this guy was really good and really kind of famous. According to friends, you couldn't find a more logical person than Whitley. Lucky for us, he wrote all about the abduction in great detail. I'll go over the basics with you now. So, he was with his wife and son in this cabin, and they were just kind of celebrating the Christmas holiday and having some family time. For some unknown reason, and this is a little weird, Whitley had recently become paranoid of intruders and had installed a very high-tech, at least for 1985, alarm system throughout his house and the cabin as well. At around 11 p.m. the day after Christmas, he activated the alarm system in his cabin, and he and his family went to bed for the night. He claims that next he was awakened by some strange and unknown sound. He had just a gut feeling that someone or something had breached his security measures somehow without setting off any of the alarms. Suddenly, he was fully awake and absolutely horrified to see a strange creature standing there in his room at the foot of his bed, the bed he was sharing with his wife. He blinked, and the next thing he could remember, he was sitting outside in the woods near his cabin. With his memories being sparse and fragmented, he was absolutely terrified and didn't know quite what to do, and more importantly, he just didn't know what in the world had happened to him. It seemed, at that moment at least, that it was just the blink of an eye and he was there in the woods outside. Willey decided that he couldn't live without knowing what had happened to him that night, and he decided to undergo hypnotic regression. The things he recalled in those regression sessions were what we would consider quite typical nowadays, at least for the most part. As we all should know by now, or will know eventually should you stay and continue watching this channel, no abduction story is the same as any other. They're all the same and yet completely different and unique in their own way. He was floated out of bed and through the wall of his bedroom and directly into a waiting spacecraft. He saw 4 different types of aliens that night. The first was a very small being who Willey likened to a robot. There was also a short, stocky type, and then the ever-present, thin, frail, and weak one of the bunch. This to me is most likely a description of the Greys as we know them, and in my alien hybrid video I explained why they always look like this, so if you haven't seen that, go and check it out. I'll leave it in the description box. Now, there's so much information on this abduction, but because I'm doing a list here, in the interest of saving time, I'm just going to give you the basics and the facts. Willey did write a book which turned into a movie about his ordeal. Oh, and if you want me to cover this story in more detail, as always, just drop me a line in the comments below or send me an email. Okay, back to Mr. Schreiber. He says the sick and fragile looking alien had slanted black eyes that were mesmerizing, and all he said about the 4th type of alien was that it too had dark black eyes, but that they were smaller and looked like little black buttons. These aliens ran numerous medical tests on him, including the very feared, terrifying, yet ever-present anal probe. They also inserted some sort of needle into his brain. When he was done recounting all of this, the hypnotherapist who was regressing him diagnosed him with temporal lobe epilepsy. They also took blood samples by making small incisions in his fingers as well. This temporal lobe epilepsy causes people to have hallucinations, and very vivid ones at that. This doctor was alluding to the fact that Willey had only hallucinated these things in his head, and because he was so convinced in his head they had happened, he was able to recount them while under hypnotic regression, which, by the way, guys, that's not even possible. If you know anything about hypnotic regression, you can't remember fake memories. I mean, maybe you can remember implanted memories, but I don't even think that's possible. I'm going to have to do some more research on that. So anyway, Willey vehemently refutes this diagnosis and is adamant that his encounter was very real. He went on to write a full book about this called Communion. Willey Schreiber is now one of the most prominent and vocal researchers into UFO and extraterrestrial phenomena, and mainly speaks and does most of his research on alien implants, abductions, and hybrid programs. Right up my alley, right? He warns of these things and has been telling people since his own experience about what's going on and how what had happened to him isn't an isolated event. I tend to agree with him there, and also I believe he is a credible witness and professional person, again with much to lose by coming out with this, especially the graphic detail he put into his novel Communion about the whole shocking and terrifying experience. Was this just a ploy to sell more books, as some skeptics believe? I highly doubt it, as he was doing perfectly fine selling his books and novels and even having so many of them made into movies. He really didn't need this negative and kind of horrific publicity, right? And that's just my opinion. Number 1 is Hillary Porter. Hillary Porter claims to have been abducted by aliens more times than she can count. She says the number could be as high as 100 times. She claims these extraterrestrial visits started when she was just 5 years old and have been a constant in her life ever since. Hillary says, quote, "I've been an alien abductee all my life. I didn't choose this life. I didn't ask for any of this, but it has been happening for as long as I can remember," end quote. Hillary comes off as credible to a lot of people, myself included, as she worked for the Ministry of Defense for a very long time. She is actually not the first woman I have found who has worked for some sort of military or government entity, especially in Britain, who has been abducted for most of their lives. I'm doing a full video on the many abductions and love affairs of Elizabeth Clarer in the coming weeks. Anyways, back to Mrs. Porter here. She says she knows what people say about her and that many, if not most people, don't even believe her, but she doesn't care one bit because just like many others who have been abducted multiple times or even just once, she knows what happened to her and she knows she isn't crazy. The first encounter she can remember was when she was just 5 years old and playing in some tall grass in a field near her family home. She says, quote, "Suddenly there was a reptilian alien in front of me. It has scaly skin, black holes on the nose, and a little mouth," end quote. She says, though this reptilian alien wasn't very tall, even to a 5-year-old, I guess, as it stood just about 5 feet, she claims it was extremely strong. It suddenly reached out and grabbed her by her arms, pulling and dragging her across the field toward a disc-shaped craft. It dragged her underneath the craft, and she says there was a lift there which opened, and she was put into it, and then she was aboard the ship. The next thing she remembers was being in a room with little beings running all around with lots of bright lights and consoles all around her. These reptilians were extremely rough with her. I feel almost sad as I have to keep reminding myself this was all happening to a very young and scared little girl. So she was stripped and tossed onto a sort of bed, and she says they took a sharp instrument and were, quote, "pressing it right the way up my body while I was screaming. I can't remember anything at all after that," end quote. Hillary claims, though, that she believes she was actually abducted many times before this one. She just has no memory of it. She recalls many times when she would keep on disappearing seemingly into thin air from her own backyard, which was secured, and her frantic and terrified mother would find her a half-mile away with no memory or explanation as to how she got there. A 2-year-old has very limited vocabulary and ability to express themselves. And this is why I say all the time that very young children, toddlers especially, are prone to these abductions because they are truly helpless. It makes me literally sick because I can't help but think of my own toddler son. Okay, so she also says she was abducted near Cardiff, Wales in the early 1970s. She says she was also abducted by a hexagonal-looking spacecraft while, quote, "hanging out bunting," end quote. What does that mean? At a local charity event? She was hanging out bunting at a local charity event. If you guys know what that means, let me know, because I have no idea. She claims there was a top secret research plant inside a macaroni factory, which an alien broke into in 1974, and she worked there at the time. When she went to work the next day, sections of the building were inaccessible and cordoned off, and a security guard who had, quote, "seen too much," end quote, and was also aware of the alien break-in, was taken away for, quote, "mental health issues," end quote, but was never seen again. There are many things that go along with each abduction in Hillary's case. This is also quite common in a lot of people who are lifelong abductees. Extreme migraines, feeling extremely sick, sicker than you've ever been in your entire life, waking up with fresh scars and or bruises and or bloody marks or stains on your pajamas and or bed sheets. These are just some of the common threads for each experiencer and what they also have to go through afterwards, as if the trauma of an abduction isn't enough. If you want more on Hillary, please let me know, and I could possibly add her encounters and the full story of her lifetime of abductions to the full video I'm doing on Elizabeth Clarer, both of whom have had far too many encounters to cover right here in a list video, and Miss Clara fell in love with and had a child with one of her alien abductors, so that's why I saved that one for a full video. Guys, I hope you liked this short little video. If you did like it, let me know, and I'll do a longer one, and I'll do like a 5 most bizarre alien abduction list or something. This is kind of just a test to see if you all are going to go for this. I really hope you guys are into it because that Elizabeth Clarer script is going great. That is the most bizarre and craziest story I've ever heard, forgetting about the UFO abduction, right? Please be sure and give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed spending this time with me, like I always enjoy spending it with you. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Make sure your notification bell is on so you can be notified every time I post. Most of my videos are longer than this. This was kind of, as I said, a little teaser for what's to come. Please do me the favor of checking out the description box for some important links. Justice for Caleb Smith. Steve Stockton and I did a 2-hour interview on missing persons and mysteries with Caleb Smith's mother, April Arrington. No mother should have to investigate the death of her own child, and that is exactly what April's doing. We're trying to raise funds to get her a private investigator, a billboard, and some attorneys. Please, justice for Caleb Smith. Check out the live stream. Let us know what you think, or if you can, get involved in any way. Maybe you're in that area and can help out. Also, the 3 live streams Steve Stockton and I do every week. Sunday, we do Fireside Chat on missing persons and mysteries from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Wednesday nights, we do Real Evil on Dezombified's channel from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And Friday nights, we do Campfire Stories from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, also on Missing Persons and Mysteries. So go on and check that out as well. There will be some links to those in the description box. Also, PayPal and Patreon information if you want to donate to the channel. I want to take a minute to thank my patrons and anyone else who has donated in the past few months. I love you so, so much. I really appreciate it. Every little bit helps. And the fact that you're willing to give like that to support me just really means the absolute world to me. I've been trying to put your guys' names in the description box. Sometimes I don't remember because I'm rushing to get the video out. But thank you all so very much for your generosity. Everybody else, thank you so, so much for your constant support and always having my back and always being here for me and always just supporting me in any way you possibly can. I love you all so very much. Be kind to each other. It doesn't cost anything and can gain you so much, make you feel so good. Always choose kind, right? You guys know that's my jam. Just be a decent human being. Smile at a stranger. You never know what someone else is going through in life. Always go in grace. So have your best day. Have your best night. I love you guys so much, and I will see you next time. Mwah. Bye-bye.